I have made every single mistake in the book. I think what's important is that you don't make the same mistake twice. And I also think it's important to remember that so many things are out of our control that mistakes are bound to happen. Whether you're self-taught, whether you have gone to school for makeup artistry, there's going to be things that you never thought would happen that are going to happen to you. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to embarrass yourself. You're going to say the wrong things. You're going to do the wrong things. You're going to mess up. It's just a natural part of working as a makeup artist. And these are the best learning experiences that you're going to get, better than any class or anything that you're going to pay for, is when you have to screw up and figure things out in the moment on the job. For me, these have always been the best learning opportunities. So I think if you see it as that, you recover much faster. And the sooner you can take your ego out of this whole process of building a career as a makeup artist, the easier it's going to be on you and not be so hard on yourself. Because again, there's just so many things that we're not going to be able to control and that you have to expect to make mistakes to become better. My favorite type of makeup looks are natural makeup looks. This is what I've built my career on. This is what has kept me booked. This is all of my content, all of my instruction, all of my videos are all based on me working as a makeup artist who does natural makeup looks. And I think they're really important to master because they can be very challenging. But once you can master a natural makeup look, you can pretty much do any look. There's so many fundamental skills that go into really mastering a natural makeup look, whether it's for an event, whether it's for on camera. So that for me is my favorite. It can be the most challenging as well, certain times, depending on what you're doing. So I think those are my favorite looks to do. Just really like natural, glowy, pretty makeup looks. Absolute favorite. I don't have a specific list that I could give you because when I work in studio, I work on different jobs all the time. And normally I pack my touch-up kit based on what I'm doing on that day and based on the challenges that I think are going to present themselves throughout the shoot. There are basic things like hand sanitizer, mini garbage bags, sponges, disposables, lip balm, lip gloss, hairspray, just like things that you need to keep makeup going, triangle puffs, all of that stuff to control shine, probably a blot powder you want to put in there. But there are going to be other things that you may need to think about, like if your client is sweaty, if they, I don't know, maybe chew their lipstick off. If they are a face toucher, then you're going to have to bring more complexion things in your touch-up kit. So, yeah, I think it's, for me, always on a case-by-case basis, but the essentials that I always pack are things that are just disposables, things to control shine, and then I have a couple hair essentials like hairspray and a brush and a comb and things like that. For me, this always depends on the combination of products that I'm using. If it is an RCMA cream blush or a cream blush from a stick, generally what I prefer to do is set with translucent powder and then apply a powder blush on top. If it's something like the Rare Beauty liquid blush, I find it dries off better and I can get away with applying a powder blush right over top. There are also certain blush formulations that just go better over creams, like Hourglass, MAC Mineralize blush. Those things can go over cream products, I guess, more easily, where they don't pull up the pigment and get patchy, and that's what I find anyways. So it depends on the formulation, but if it's just a standard run-of-the-mill cream blush, set with a bit of translucent powder, not too much where you're pulling a lot of moisture from the skin, and then you can go over with your blush and highlighter and all that. I had a couple questions, similar questions from a couple of makeup artists last week. I'm sorry, I forgot to take screen grabs. It was a little crazy last week. I did a commercial on Friday, and the questions that came in were all about how do I manage timing on commercial jobs. I don't manage anything. I basically show up to set. I get the breakdown of the day. Oftentimes it's changed from what I received in the call sheet, and I just work under the time constraints that I have. So on Friday, I was working with normal people, not models or actors, and I had 45 minutes to do makeup and hair on each of the 4 women that were there, which is not very much time at all. In addition to that, the other challenge was we were filming in a studio where the sound wasn't great and I didn't have a separate makeup area, so I had to do the makeup and style the hair while they're filming sound. So I couldn't use things like a hairdryer diffuser. I could only turn them on briefly when we were in between takes or just on a quick break, and I couldn't even really spray anything because sometimes the sound of the spray was picking up on the sound. This was a really good question that also came in last week. It's a longer question just about my contract, so I'm going to walk you through my exact process. I'll do it, hopefully I can fit it in this story, with how I send my contracts. So I send contracts to my personal clients for events, weddings, bat mitzvahs, proms, whatever it is. All of my clients have to sign a contract or I don't go to the event. I use Honeybook as my CRM. So when they fill in the form to submit their inquiry for the job, let's say, we'll call it a job, that information gets automatically fed into a contract template that I have uploaded from the legal page for hair and makeup. So some information gets pulled from the form my clients filled in and it goes into the contract, and Honeybook does this all for me. Then when we discuss and it comes time to sign the contract, everything is done digitally. There's a couple things I have marked off on their contract that they have to fill in for me, things like addresses, location of where we're getting ready. So I send that to them and it's all done digitally. I don't think I've been asked this before. I can't remember answering this question. During my downtime, I think for me, one of my favorite things to do is just go one for a walk and go for a really nice, expensive iced coffee or just a really good coffee. That's like one of my favorite things to do. Exercise, lifting weights, walking, I consider that leisure activity because I enjoy it. It just keeps me sane. So anything fitness related that I really love to do. And then I also can just appreciate some time in front of the TV. I love TV. I love Netflix. I love my Housewives, my Hey You subscription I watch all the time, and things like Love is Blind and all that stuff. So that's some of the things that I like to do when I'm not working. When it comes to rate and pricing, I'll tell you, it doesn't matter if you're self-taught or you've gone to school. In those first couple of years, you're not going to feel confident about your pricing because it's all a mystery and there's no sense behind pricing sometimes, especially if you're not unionized. It's something that's sort of self-directed, and it's important to really rely on the community of artists that you know around you to discuss rates, and you have to be open to discussing these things to make sure we're kind of keeping everyone in check and we're all pricing fairly and honestly. And so it's important to be open about that. So you do have to start to build your network so that you can discuss these things. And then there's things where it just takes time for you to figure this out on your own. You will take jobs that you're being underpaid for. Sometimes you'll get overpaid. So you'll figure out where your rates are going to sort of live based on your own experiences with clients. You also have to understand your own budget and needs and how much you need to earn. That's going to affect your rates. So it's never going to be clear. And even now, sometimes I'm still not sure what to charge for certain jobs. So I'll ask a couple friends and see what they're charging just so I can make sure I'm on par. So I hope that helps. Oh, this is a great question. And there wasn't just one thing. So as far as perfecting my makeup application technique, it was really important for me to see how my work translated from what I was doing, what I was seeing in person to on camera in different light settings. And that just takes a really long time because you need to have a lot of experience with your work being filmed and photographed under different lighting setups. So that's really hard. The second thing that's very difficult is if you don't have a mentor or somebody that you're assisting regularly or working with, when you don't have that feedback from somebody else, you get stuck in your own way of doing things and you think things are good and then they go to camera and they look awful. And I never really had a mentor or anyone I could go to have my work kind of assessed. So that was really difficult and challenging. And some of the best learning experiences I had were when I have gone to jobs and my work has been blown up on a monitor in front of 20 different people and they have kind of assessed what they like and don't like. So that's very helpful as well. And then just the amount of hours that you need to practice to get things right. I think for me, I would probably have to say Hourglass, even though I'm kind of pissed off with the situation with the pro discount right now. I really hope they bring it back. And I hope this whole thing about like there's some problem with their back end is just not a way to completely eliminate it without saying so. And I hope maybe they're changing their pro discount. I don't know. But Hourglass, generally speaking, everything I've tried from the brand has performed really well and clients love it. Charlotte Tilbury is another one. Patrick Toff, you would consider that high end. There's also like the Dior and Chanel, and I've worked with some Dior products more than Chanel, and I've tried a couple one-off things from Chanel and all great, but I think those brands that I mentioned, Hourglass, Patrick Ta, Charlotte Tilbury, are probably some of the products that I know work well and that my clients really get a kick out of. So those are the ones that I would recommend. I did a corporate photo shoot last week, and again, this is a situation where I just do what I can in the time that I have. I am rarely asked about timing on these jobs. I just show up and they tell me we have, 5, 10, 15 people in the time frame. So really, it's just a matter of me triaging when I look at the person, what is the biggest concern? And obviously, I'm going to be familiar with the photographer and the style of headshots that they're going for, so that helps me decide what I want to focus on. So generally with headshots, corporate headshots, it's shine is the first concern. If someone's sweating, you want to control that. For anybody that is wearing makeup, I make sure they have nice color on their cheeks, healthy color on the lips, so they don't wash or they're not washed out on camera. Coverage, quick spot coverage if need be on all my clients. And yeah, like it's just a matter of, sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 15 minutes, sometimes you get half an hour, but it's usually between 5 and 15 for prep in my experience. I assume you're talking about corporate shoots or headshots or commercials or things like that. It's going to depend on your market. In Toronto, we charge based on time. So it's either a full day or a half day. A lot of more senior artists don't take half days because you lose potential for a full day booking when you're really busy, unless the rate for half day is quite good or you put a little bit of a higher rate, because you are going to be losing out on a full day booking. But we charge basically for our time and never per person. It's just not the way things are done in this market. So that hopefully is helpful for you. The answer to that is definitely not. That would be similar to a photographer coming up to a makeup artist and asking about what products they're using for the makeup application. And sometimes we go into these jobs where we have kind of an idea of what products we're going to be using, but you don't really know until the talent is in your chair. So it's the same thing sometimes for lighting and photographers who are setting up in studio. Sometimes they have a basic design in mind for the lighting, but things change as your talent gets on set and underneath the lighting, and that these setups kind of change and evolve. So no, I would not ask a photographer in advance. I would get familiar with the photographer's work. Usually when we're shooting in studio, there is some sort of outline for how the images should turn out. They could be bright, they could be more moody, they could have a gel over the lights, so it might be a different color altogether depending on what it is. Like there's a million different situations, but no, I'm not going to ask the photographer what kind of light he's going to shoot. I'm going to take into consideration the images we're using as our inspiration, but particular specific lighting setup, no. This is a very timely question considering Black Friday is upon us. Now, I swear by the legal page contracts. These are the contracts that I use in my business. As I said, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Black Friday is coming, so you may want to follow me and follow the legal page because there may be something coming up in the future, right? However, if you are an event makeup artist, you must have a contract in place regardless of how much experience you have before you take event bookings. You need to protect yourself and your business, and this is the last thing you want to go cheap on. You buy it once, and that's all you have to do, okay? So keep that in mind. Don't be the person that's trying to go through the internet, piece together contracts, try to figure out what you need, what you don't need, try to do your own wording, try to, just cut and paste things together because you want to save a couple of dollars. Just get one that's made by a lawyer that has experience in our industry. That's my best advice to you. I can't do in general because it's always going to be based on the individual client that's sitting in your chair. I've worked with 70-year-olds that have really oily skin. I've worked with 90-year-olds that have very dry skin. So the skin type will be in the same range as clients that are in every other age group, right? Like you have people with dry skin, you have people that have skin conditions like rosacea, you have people that have super oily skin, and this can happen at all ages, so be prepared for that. If you are thinking about what to use on people that have more fine lines and wrinkles on their skin, I prefer self-setting foundations and concealers because they require less powder and they set on the skin so they're less likely to move and settle into fine lines. So foundation and concealer wise, Face Atelier Makeup Forever HD Liquid. The concealer as well for the Makeup Forever HD is excellent. I've also been liking my Lancome concealers. There's a Glow Radiance one that's really nice. So those are the ones that I can think of top of mind. If you are bringing on a second artist, you are likely going to take a cut of the total amount that your client is paying you for that service because it's finder's fee, administrative fee, whatever you want to call it. So you're going to take a percentage. The percentage that you take is going to be up to you. It's really important to pay your assistants fairly based on their level of experience as well. I think it's very important anyways. There are certain weddings that I do where I don't take a cut off of my second and third artists that are working with me because they're very senior, very experienced, and I want to make sure I'm paying them properly. And then more junior artists, I usually take a cut. And I've heard of people doing as high as 40%. I would say that's not fair. I think you're probably looking at the 20 to 30% cut from the fee that you're charging your clients. But again, this depends on your market, what's normal in your market. But best thing I could recommend is don't underpay your second and third artists or any of your assistants. It's not great for your business. Excellent question. So many good questions this week. I don't think I've been asked this before, and I love this question. I should probably do some content around this. I'll add it to my ever-growing list. Hopefully I'll get to it. But the trial is a very critical time between you and your client. Oftentimes it's the make or break to see if they're going to book you for the wedding. It's a time where communication is very important, and communication leading up to the trial is important. So you really need to get to know your client, what they're looking for, what their likes and dislikes are for makeup. And that means looking at photos, mood boards, make sure your client brings to the trial looks they like, looks they don't like, pictures of themselves where they've maybe had their makeup done in the past that they either liked or didn't like. This is all going to help you get an idea for what you're going to do for the wedding. You want to try things at the trial. You want to look at lash styles, lip colors, cheek colors. You want to make sure that when your client leaves, they're feeling confident about booking you and they have something on their face that's going to resemble very closely what the makeup is going to look like on the wedding day. And it's also the time to make a note of all these preferences and the products that you're going to use. You definitely need to listen to my podcast. There's a bunch of episodes about how to build a career as a makeup artist, how to start getting paid clients and all that stuff. It's quite complex. There's a lot of work that goes into it. As far as, I'll say, you use the word volunteering. It's not the type of industry where, like a co-op placement where you volunteer and then you get booked. To build a paid client roster, there's like 700 things that you need to be doing at once. So if you're looking for experience, assisting a more senior makeup artist is going to be the best experience you can get. This is very hard to do because you have to establish a relationship with a more senior artist who is willing to assist. I think also where you are going to have success is connecting with photographers, going out and doing shoots with creative teams. That's where you can start to build your network and finding people who are at your level to eventually grow your relationship with those people so together you can work to find clients. I have a couple minutes, so I'm going to try to get to the rest of the questions from the Q&A this week. I thought this was a really good question. I never have a typical week. Every week is different. I'll give you an example of my schedule from last week. I had headshots, corporate headshots. I worked 3 days. Sorry, I should say that first. Corporate headshots. I did an event for Velour, and then I did a commercial for Royal Bank, which is a big bank here, I guess in Canada. And that was my week last week. When I'm not working, I'm working on content for artist to artist. I'm also dealing with stuff in my personal life. So it's busy, busy, busy. Some weeks are slower than others. Sometimes I have 6 jobs. Sometimes I have 1 job. Sometimes I don't work for 3 weeks in a row. And then sometimes I'll work, I'll have a couple jobs every week for a couple months. So it's all ebbs and flows. And it's been like that for me since I started doing makeup artistry full time. I do prioritize sleep. I try to keep on the same sleep schedule regardless of my work hours. So even when I'm off, I still wake up early. That's important for me. So I hope, oh no, I'm not doing any regluing here. If something needs to be reglued, it goes in the garbage. If something is damaged where it's cracked, with that, there's a hygiene concern because anytime there's cracks in our brush handles, it's just places for germs and bacteria to hide. So with a cracked brush as well, if it's a brush handle, that goes in the garbage. If the ferrule is discolored, I don't keep it in my kit. I don't keep anything that looks damaged in my kit, but I do have a bin or a couple bins of brushes that where the ferrule is maybe discolored, maybe the handle got discolored or something like that, and I keep those for jobs where I almost need disposable brushes. So things like a lot of glitter, maybe like there's some, I don't want to say body painting, but when you're using pigments and things like that stain brushes easily, or I just need a ton of brushes for something, I'll save those brushes for those kind of jobs. But other than that, no damaged brushes in my kit. I expect that there's going to be some alterations with the makeup applications that I'm doing. When it's a personal client, I never get to a point where I'm not checking in on them and I would need to redo a whole entire face. I check in as I go. I control their access to my mirror so they're not constantly rechecking over and over. But I do check in, and if someone isn't happy with something, I just change it and I try to understand what they're looking for, what they didn't like. If I have to go back in and pull up pictures on my phone to get a better idea and get a reference point of what they would prefer instead, I just do that. But I would be careful about working with clients who you can tell are a little uneasy, letting them see the makeup application at the end. Usually you end up wasting a lot of time redoing stuff. When I'm on set for other jobs that are not with personal clients, if a client isn't happy with something, just fix it, redo it, change what I can, and try to be as fast as possible. So it's not a big deal. It's expected in this job. You can't nail everything right away because I'm not psychic. So I expect that there's going to be some alterations with the makeup applications that I'm doing. When it's a personal client, I never get to a point where I'm not checking in on them and I would need to redo a whole entire face. I check in as I go. I control their access to my mirror so they're not constantly rechecking over and over. But I do check in, and if someone isn't happy with something, I just change it and I try to understand what they're looking for, what they didn't like. If I have to go back in and pull up pictures on my phone to get a better idea and get a reference point of what they would prefer instead, I just do that. But I would be careful about working with clients who you can tell are a little uneasy, letting them see the makeup application at the end. Usually you end up wasting a lot of time redoing stuff. When I'm on set for other jobs that are not with personal clients, if a client isn't happy with something, just fix it, redo it, change what I can, and try to be as fast as possible. So it's not a big deal. It's expected in this job. You can't nail everything right away because I'm not psychic. So, okay. This is a great question. There's two things that I want to talk about with the answer to this question. So the first thing is that with rates, I don't know what to tell you to charge. It's such a nuanced discussion. I would need to know more about you, what your experience level is, the market that you're working in. But on your behalf, you should be getting out there and figuring out who the major players are in your market, what the going rates are. You need to talk to your network of makeup artists. With rates, sometimes you determine your rates, meaning a client will ask you what your day rate is or half day rate or whatever, and you would put that forward. And then sometimes clients just come to you with a budget and you can decide to accept it or not. So it's not always you determining your rate. Sometimes you're at the mercy of the market and the clients that you have. So that's one thing I wanted to say. As far as having years of experience but not working as a full-time makeup artist, I have a lot of experience in this arena. And I think one of the biggest shocks to me was when I did go full-time. Let me continue in another story. The second thing I wanted to talk about, I'm trying to think about how to say this. I talk about this more at length in my podcast, so you should check that out. By the time I went full-time as a makeup artist, I was into my 30s, and I was working alongside some of the best makeup artists in Toronto who were agency represented. And by that point, I had been doing makeup on and off since I was 16, full-time, part-time, all over the place. It's something I've been doing for a really long time. But when I got into the arena with people who had been doing it full-time, it was a huge wake-up call for me. My work was not on their level. It did not look the same. How they carried themselves on set, their confidence, the things they had in their kit, what their kit looked like, language they were using. It was just a completely different world to me. And I realized I was actually not quite as experienced as I thought in the business of makeup artistry. Skill-wise, I was there, but I had a lot to learn because I hadn't just had the same experience as a full-time makeup artist. I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's difference. The level of experience is different, and I hope this makes sense. If I had two makeup artists in front of me and I was a client and both had 10 years of experience, and this makeup artist had 10 years of full-time experience with a certain level of client, and this person came to me with, let's say, a $1,200 day rate, I'm going to get a $1,200 makeup artist from this person. This person who feels like they've been doing makeup for just as long as the full-time person and comes to set with the $1,200 day rate, this person, in a lot of ways, is not going to be able to live up to what this artist does for a client. This is not to say this person's never going to get there. It's just a different type of experience. So I hope that's very clear about what you need to think about with your rates, because clients don't know how much experience you have, but they will judge your level of experience based on the rate that you're charging as well. It's all very confusing, but I hope this gives some clarity. There are two clients that I can think of. One is Velour Beauty, and the other one is Harlequin, which are the romance novels. I've been working for both of these clients for over a decade, and they are my favorite gigs to do because they are absolutely the hardest jobs I have ever had in my many years of doing this, because the intensity of the jobs is very high. My work is under a microscope. I have to work quickly, and I've become a better artist because of being put through the ringer with those clients. I have made the most mistakes with those clients, so it gets me prepared for other clients. I don't make the same mistake twice, or try not to. And having so many people expect you to be, on 10 all the time and deliver a certain level of makeup application in a certain time and a certain finish, it's very, very challenging. So those have been my absolute favorite clients to work for.